I want to welcome you to this regularly called meeting of the Johnson City City Commission. This meeting is being conducted on Thursday, March the 18th, 2021 at 6 p.m. electronically, pursuant to Governor Lee's Executive Order number 78. Ms. Jennings, will you read the roll, please?
Yes. Commissioner Brock.
Here.
Commissioner Hunter.
Here.
Commissioner Murphy.
Here.
Vice Mayor Fowler. Absent. Mayor Wise.
Here.
Thank you.
And we'll now invite Mr. Rajan Zed to lead our invocation, please.
My hearty thanks to Mayor Joe Wise, Commissioners Fowler, Brock, Hunter, Murphy, Manager Peterson for scheduling me to read invocation for the great city of Johnson City. I shall be reading from ancient Hindu scriptures in Sanskrit, some as old as about 1500 BCE, and then interpret in English. Om Bhurbhuvah Svah Tat Saviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat. We meditate on the transcendental glory of the Deity Supreme, who's inside the heart of the earth, inside the life of the sky, and inside the soul of the heaven. May He stimulate and illuminate our minds. Astoma Sadgamya Tamsoma Jyotirgamya Mrityur Mamratam Gamya. Lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from death to immortality. Tasmada Sakta Statum Karyam Karma Samachara Asakto Hyacharan Karma Parmapnoti Purusha Karma Nevahi Samsiddhi Masita Jankadya Loka Sangreha Mevapi Sampa Shankar Tumrahasi. Strive constantly to serve the welfare of the world by devotion to selfless. One attains the supreme goal of life. Do your work with the welfare of others always in mind. Om Saha Navavatu, Saha Nobunaktu, Saha Viryan Karba Bahai, Tejasvi Navadita Mastu, Ma Bidvisa Bahai. May we be protected together. May we be nourished together. May we work together with great vigor. May our study be enlightening. May no obstacle arise between us. Samniva Kuti, Samna Hirdaniva, Samnamastu Vo Mano, Yathava Susahasti. United your resolve, united your hearts. May your spirits be at one, that you may long together dwell in unity and concord. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Om. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And now we have with us to offer the Pledge of Allegiance, Millie Elliott, a local Girl Scout who I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge, probably like all other Girl Scouts would like to sell you some cookies right now. But we will turn it over to Millie to lead our pledge. So if everyone will stand for the pledge, please.
I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, in the republic of which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that, Millie. And now, Mr. Peterson, what is up on our agenda, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Before we get into the agenda, I would like to share something with the commission and all of our viewers. Pursuant to a communication that I sent to staff just a few moments ago, and some conversations I've had with each of you individually, I would like to read a little statement. It's been an honor and a privilege for me to serve our community for the past 16 years from the city manager's office. I'm extraordinarily proud of our accomplishments and the remarkable staff who have made them possible. Working together, we have made significant improvements to our city. It is with much gratitude that I announce to you my impending retirement. This year marks my 31st with the City of Johnson City, and the time has now come for me to shift my focus from work to my family and my all too quickly growing children. This early announcement will allow for an adequate search for an ideal candidate and subsequent transitional period. While I will not be involved in the selection of the next manager, I am committed to ensuring a smooth and seamless changeover with that person. I assure you that we will continue to provide the excellent level of service our citizens expect as we enter this new chapter of the city's management. Again, it has been a pleasure to serve and to be a part of all the ways in which our city has grown, thrived, and improved. I assure you we are poised to continue these successes, and I look forward to seeing all that come true, albeit from a different view. I would like to announce to you that my intentions are to work through the balance of this calendar year, which will give you approximately 8 months to go through a search and selection process, and hopefully that will be adequate time for a smooth transition. And I want to thank you for a big thank you to all of the staff, a great group of people, a great caring group of people. Many thanks to this commission and preceding commissions for their guidance, support, and for making all those hard decisions that are required of elected bodies in order to give staff the guidance and the resources for us to make a significant difference in the lives of those that we serve. Again, it's been a pleasure, and I thank you for this opportunity. It's now time for me to help you transition, and look forward to a new manager at the helm. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. I want to give other commissioners an opportunity to speak, so I won't monopolize time. I guess before I do that, I would just express my appreciation for your years of service and dedication. You look at Johnson City over the last 30 years and compare then to now, so much has changed, and in so many positive ways. I think for my colleagues on the commission, I would say I have been in conversation with Mr. Peterson and Mr. Willis in the Human Resource Department, and we've really tried to think through with this announcement coming what a time frame and process might look like. And so I would be asking you to authorize me to begin work with Mr. Willis to get a request for proposal developed and out to identify a national executive recruiting firm with a proven track record of success, identifying and successfully placing senior leadership in a municipal setting. We think, just based on our preliminary estimates, that's probably a 6 to 8 month process. And so while the end of the year seems far off, it's not. Mr. Peterson's announcement gives us time, but not time to waste. And so we need to get to work. So that would be my initial suggestion to you as my colleagues, what we should do next. But for now, I think we should certainly turn our comments and attention toward Mr. Peterson as well. So I'll turn it over. Commissioner Brock, would you like to go first?
Absolutely. Pete, I have known and worked with you since 2006 when I first went on the school board. So we had great challenges in front of us, during that time period, and really made tremendous progress with the schools. I watched the city. I worked with the commissioners at that time. Before I moved over to the commission, I followed Dr. Van Brocklin in that same process. When I stepped in as mayor, you and I began having these conversations about succession planning for the city, which is a very important thing for all of our upper management. And we had that on multiple occasions, and even talked about succession for you At some point in time, as we get so many years and so much age on us, we have to start thinking about that for sure. So we knew it was imminent. I just wasn't prepared for it today. When the letter came, I was quite surprised. But I think the amount of lead time that you are giving us will help us reach a good outcome. And I really appreciate that so much. You know, I've been thinking about the job of city manager. And I think it's probably one of the most complex positions that exist. You're on 24/7, and then you multiply that by the 16, 17 years you've been in that role. That's a lot of stress and strain for sure. It's very complex. There are 1,000 moving pieces every day, and then you layer 1,000 employees over the top of that, and all the citizens of this city, and then all the commissioners you've worked with over these 17 years. And so that's probably, you know, if you say 5 times 17 years, you know, well over 80 commissioners that change in and out every 2 years. You've got new ones to work with. So hats off to you for being able to manage all of that. So I would probably say you are well deserving for a rest and time to spend with your young children and to be able to bring a new chapter to your life. You've been a real steady hand on the rudder for Johnson City. And so as everybody, as they kind of go through and look at what value they've added to whatever it is they're doing, I don't think there's a place you can ever ride around in Johnson City that you don't see your hand, your fingerprints on that. We have come a long way since I have become associated with the city, and the progress that's been made has been just amazing. And I just can't thank you enough. Obviously we have time, and I appreciate that so much, but anyway, I just wanted to say that, and we'll say more later, but thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, you know, Pete, I'm not one to speak for very long, but you know, I appreciate and want to echo what Commissioner Brock said. You know, we appreciate your service. Under your watch, the city has benefited from, you know, many great opportunities, and I think that the pump is primed very well for your successor. You know, personally, I feel fortunate that I've been able to have the opportunity to serve with you. Your wealth of knowledge and you have a true care for the success of the place you call home. And I guess, you know, I really appreciate the communication and the time you're affording us to find your successor so that we can, you know, make the right match. And appreciate you, Pete.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Murphy.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I echo the fact that I wasn't expecting to hear this on today. However, I am in support of your decision, Pete, Mr. Peterson. We have not worked long together, but ever since I was afforded the opportunity to sit at this table, you have been very kind, respectful, easy to work with. And I just really thank you for the short time we've been able to work alongside each other and serving our citizens. Even hearing you say that you want to focus on family, and I'm an advocate that family comes first, and you do believe in the generation that's coming, and there's a time for everything. And so as you pass the baton, my prayer is that God will send the right one to take us to the place he desires us to be. Thank you, Mr. Peterson, and God bless you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
And so with that, I guess I would be asking if there would be a willingness of the commission to make a motion just directing me to begin work with Mr. Willis and HR to get an RFP developed and out And what we would imagine is that we would have proposals back in a prescribed period of time, and then that would allow us to begin as the full commission reviewing those proposals and then interviewing those that we wish to explore further. So that would be the question I'm putting forth as a suggestion, I guess, as a next step.
Mayor, I'll make that motion that you begin the process with Mr. Willis to get us kind of a project plan together on how we're going to approach this. And if there's anything I can do, I have an HR background to help in this process. I'm more than willing to do that. So that's my
Absolutely.
motion.
We welcome that. Ms. Jennings?
Janet is, yeah.
As a procedural matter,
We have to add it to the
agenda
I'm
first.
sorry.
Um,
Yeah, I know that.
I'm sorry to put a kink in your plans here, but
No,
let's add that
that's
to the
fine.
agenda.
We have not yet, have we done our agenda approval for the meeting, or do we guess we could add it at any point. So we need a motion to add that to the agenda. Would somebody make a motion to add?
I make a motion to add that to the agenda.
Thank you. And a second from Commissioner Hunter. We'll call the roll on adding it to the agenda.
Commissioner Brock,
yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Mayor Wise.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
Now you can go forth.
Now we have a motion from Commissioner Brock. And
Do I need to,
yeah,
do I
you
need to repeat that,
repeated.
Janet, or do you
Sure,
have it from?
I have you.
Okay. And was that a second, Commissioner Hunter?
Sure.
Okay. I guess we can call the roll.
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
and Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Thank you for indulging me.
All right. So the next item on the agenda, Mr. Peterson, I think we're back to the approval of minutes.
Yes, sir. And thank you for your kind words and the opportunity to serve. And I am here for 8 more months. So we've got a lot of work to do, and we need to roll our shirt sleeves up, as they say, and keep things moving. Your next order of business is consideration of the minutes from your meeting held on Thursday, March the 4th.
Are there any modifications, or is the commission ready to make a motion for approval?
I make a motion for approval of the meeting minutes.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second, and if there's not objection, we'll call the roll.
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Next order of business is proclamations and presentations. The first being the presentation of a proclamation recognizing Mac Hensley as the first licensed physical therapist in the state of Tennessee and the centennial celebration of the American Physical Therapy Association. Mayor?
Yes, sir. And JT, I believe we have some guests with us who are here as a part of that recognition. And I think they include, is it the grandson of Mr. Hensley? Is that right? All right, we welcome you. Let me read this proclamation, and it begins, whereas physical therapists are experts who help people live healthy and active lives through prescribed exercise, hands-on care, and patient education to help patients achieve fitness goals and regain or maintain independence. And whereas the American Physical Therapy Association was founded in 1921 as a professional organization representing 100,000 member physical therapists, physical therapy assistants, and students. And whereas 2021 is the centennial year of the APTA, and whereas the city of Johnson City saw the first licensed physical therapist in the state of Tennessee when the late William Mac Hensley received his license in March of 1956. And whereas Mac Hensley was a dedicated man who served his community as a clinician, educator, leader, and pioneer in physical therapy over his long and well-respected career. And whereas the APTA of Tennessee awarded Mac Hensley the Hall of Fame Award for his exemplary service and in East Tennessee and in the physical therapy profession. Now, therefore, I, Joe Wise, the mayor of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, do hereby commemorate the profession of physical therapy and Mac Hensley and congratulate the American Physical Therapy Association on their first decade of service to Americans, first century of service to Americans all across the nation. And so with that, I'll invite the Hensleys or others who are here as a part of this. If they'd like to make any comments, we would certainly invite that.
Thank you, Mayor Wise. This is Alan Mead, and I'm the chapter president of the APTA Tennessee. And as part of Tennessee's participation in the American Physical Therapy Association's 100 years anniversary, our centennial, January 15th of 1921 till January 15th of 2021, and celebrating all year long, the Tennessee chapter would like to recognize one of its founding members, William Mac Hensley. Mac was the first licensee in Tennessee as a physical therapist, serving in the first licensing board of this great profession and holding several offices within the Tennessee PT Association. What was unique about Mac is he gave his all to the PT profession, seeing numerous patients from all over the Tri-Cities. He was a strong advocate for the physical therapy school at East Tennessee State University. I do not believe Mac really wanted to retire, as he kept practicing up into his 70s and early 80s. He made his home and practice in the great city of Johnson City, Tennessee. So thank you, Mayor Wise, and to your wonderful commissioners for this proclamation, and on behalf of the PT profession of 100 years, and to the legacy of William Mac Hensley. Now, Dr. King is also here, and she can introduce two of Mac's members, family members. Dr. King? Is she there?
I am here.
Welcome, Dr. King.
Thank you, Mayor Wise. And thank you, Alan, for that. Let me see if I can get my video. Well, it says the host won't let me, so I will, now I can. Okay. Wait, thank you. I want to thank the commission and the mayor for this recognition of Mac. I want to thank Alan for that excellent overview of all Mac contributed to our profession and overall into the state of Tennessee and the city of Johnson City. It's been my great honor to be able to work closely with the Hensley family over the last few years, and the contribution they've made to the Tennessee Physical Therapy Association and some of Mac's clinical and other professional items to help us maintain his legacy, as well as to maintain a repository for the history of our profession in Tennessee. And with that, I'd like to introduce Matt Hensley, the grandson of our dear friend and colleague, mentor and role model, Mac Hensley. And Matt is here with his wife, Rachel. Matt.
How are y'all doing this evening? I just want to say it's an honor to be here and a part of this. I grew up coming to East Tennessee every year, spending summers with my grandfather, going to his office. Even when I was at Milligan College and at UTSU, I'd spend a lot of time down at Granddad's office, following him, going to see patients with them. Right now, him and my grandmother are married. Both would be just amazed at the love and support that y'all have shown and poured onto us as a family. So anything we can do, please just let us know.
Well, we thank you for being with us, and we thank the association for making us aware of this milestone and the significance of Johnson City and Mac Hensley in that history. And so we thank you all and wish you well and good evening.
Thank you, Mayor Wise. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Peterson, what is up next on our agenda?
The next item on your agenda is one of the more important things we do every year. Of course, our main charge is to set an audit every year, or set a budget every year, and the audit team comes in and reviews our performance. And it is with pleasure tonight that I ask representatives of Blackburn, Childress, and Steagall to present to you your annual financial report. So, Janet, is Karen doing this one?
She is on standby.
Right.
Thanks, Karen.
It's great to be here this evening, and Pete, I do wish you the very best. We have worked together for a number of years now. I've actually officially retired as a partner in December from the firm, but I'm still working there, and I've been there 40 plus years, so I understand what you're saying. There's a lot of other things I enjoy doing besides working, so I do wish you the very best. Pete and Lester Latney and I also were on the leadership together and got assigned to the same team. And that was, I think, in 1995. So it's been a day or two ago. I've appreciated the knowing both of you over the years and appreciate the work that you've done for the city. As we look at the audit, I would like first off to say we are sorry that it's as late as it is. We could blame it on COVID. We've blamed a lot of things this past year on COVID, whether it was or not. So we can do that. But the audit, as far as the financial statements of the city and the things that the city is primarily responsible for, that you all look at from a month-to-month basis on a fund level, was finished in December, and we did review that with Pete and with Janet. The one finding that you have in the report is about the late receipt of the OPEB reports. Those are required to be included in the government-wide financials, and it was a substantial increase in that government-wide financial presentation to show what those other post-employment benefits that you promised to people who've worked there. Now, that said, it did not have a great bearing on your budget process, on your day-to-day fund level financial statements. And so we did meet and go through all of that in December in hopes that we could have wrapped things up at that time. But there was a delay in getting those OPEB reports, and therefore we got the proper extensions from GFOA, from the state. Anybody who wanted a copy of the report, we got an extension approved and waited until we got the OPEB information. So that's the reason you're seeing this delayed. Just wanted to clarify what had held that up. I did send out a summary that I think you all got sometime today, which is a little easier to go through some of the highlights than going through the entire report. We have referenced some of the pages that you have for the report. The opinion letter, of course, is again an unmodified opinion or a clean opinion. We don't have anything that would cause us to have to modify our opinion in any way. The MD&A is always very important for you to review. That section is written by Janet, but it is a narrative that she puts together after we finish the financial statements and any adjusting entries that we would have, and would have a chance to go over those with her. And then she puts more in a plain English presentation what has happened for the city during the year. And so I would really encourage you not to get too bogged down in the entire report, but if you want to read a really good summary of it, those pages 4 through 15 will provide you with that information. The government-wide financial statements do begin on page 16 through 19, and that is a statement of net position and then a statement of changes. If you want to look at the second page that we've given you in that handout, the government-wide financial summary, that just tells you what's on pages 16 through 19, just really condensed, so that you can see what the total revenues within the governmental activities and business type activities and overall for the city. Now, we did not include component units here. If you look at the financials, you will have things like the JCDA and other component units that you have. But it gives you your total revenues, total expenses. The transfers, of course, are between the funds, so that nets to zero. And then you can see what the beginning position was and what the ending position was. And so overall, there was a decrease in the governmental activities. A lot of that is because of the OPEB adjustment, which again, you all pay as you go. So it's not something that greatly affects, again, your fund level or your budget process. It is a required standard, though, that we reflect at the government-wide level what those future projections are to pay the benefits that you've provided for health insurance for retirees is what it is. Okay, so back to the summary, we have the debt activity, which is always something that I know everyone is concerned about, and we have provided you a debt summary as well. That debt summary can be found on page 141 in the audit report if you want to look at more note disclosure on it there. And it gives you a complete detail of every bond issue, every note that you have, capital outlay notes, whatever that you would have there. Immediately preceding page 141, there is that detail. Here you can see basically the additions or new debt that you took out, the deletions are the payments you made on old debt. Again, with the exception of the OPEP obligation, and that is based entirely on the actuarial reports that we receive and what they say that the actuarial projection is of what you would owe into the future. Again, you pay as you go, so it's not that you have to come up with all of this at once anyway. Going on through the capital assets, roll forward activity is in footnote D on pages 84 and 85 of the report. That shows what is in your governmental activities as well as your business funds. And then I think it's important to note all the things that the city accomplished during the year ended June 30th of 2020, because it was a very different year from the first 6 months of the year to the last 6 months of the year. There were so many things that happened, and a lot of places that we worked with, we did find that things just really stalled in that time period from the 1st of March till the end of June. But the city was able to continue on with the things that they had started. There were a number of projects that were completed, others that were in progress at year end, and we've listed a number of those here for you just to, sometimes we forget all the things that have happened, and it's good to just go back and see what has been accomplished. Your federal grant expenditures for your awards that were received during the year, you expended $10,428,834. The majority of those are in education and in the transit grants, but there are a number of other grants that you also receive. Those are summarized for you on page 198 through 202 of the audit. And then there are state expenditures as well, and a large number of those are also for community development, the school system, and for transit. We have two reports at the end of the report, and I know a lot of people want to flip to the end and see what the findings are before even looking at the rest of the report. But the only finding we really have is that there was the delay in getting the OPEB report. And I do appreciate all of Janet's efforts and Steve Willis's efforts and everybody in the accounting department everywhere that tried to get that information as quickly as we could. There were just a number of things that caused a delay there. And so we did put that in there as just as a significant deficiency, not as a material weakness. It was obtained and it is reflected in the report. We didn't have any findings at all that pertain to any of the grant funds, which is always extremely important. It can hurt your grant funding if there are findings in the grant area. So it's always very good that we didn't have and haven't had in a while any findings in the grant funds. Janet has already provided the corrective action plan, and I've gone through this summary pretty quickly, but if you have any comments or questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
Commissioners, are there questions for Ms. McMurray?
Karen, I would just ask if you would just make some comments on our long-term debt. I kind of fast forwarded to those pages to look at that, and we always, of course, want to make sure that we have that our debt ratio to everything else is healthy. So if you just have some comments, that would be well
Yeah.
received.
It certainly is. You are well within what your debt limit is. Trying to scroll through this to that page. It is on page 269. And you do have capacity as far as that long-term debt goes. Your legal debt margin currently is, let me pull that up here. You have capacity, you have a margin still of 137 million. And so, you know, the debt limit with 10% of your taxable asset value, assessed value would be 209 million. And the general obligation debt.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. The general obligation always deduct that is being paid with the sales tax revenue. So the net debt that's applicable to the limit is 71 million. So you do still have a margin there. And these are just in the governmental funds, because the business type funds, typically your water and sewer fund, the bonds are paid directly out of that fund through the revenues, and those calculations are made for that. Not all of the bonds in the water and sewer fund are issued as revenue bonds. Some of them are issued as GO bonds just because it's usually an easier process, but they are all well covered by the revenues from the water and sewer fund.
What is that percentage off the top of your head? If we have the capacity of 10% of our assessed values, where are we right now? I think the last time was somewhere around 5%. Pete, you may know this number right off the top of your head too.
If I remember correctly, we're at about 4 to 4.5% of 10%.
Yeah, it would be less than 5 because you're at 99 million and your capacity is 209. So it's a little less.
Actually at 3.4. Karen, I think that's on page 269.
Okay.
And that's a really important message to deliver to our citizens. Debt, you know, we issue debt on long-term projects because it's not fair for this generation to pay for everything that's going to be used 50 years in the future. So it makes sense. But, you know, the great financial management of the city, and Mr. Peterson has just done a great job of, you know, helping shepherd multiple commissions through, and I think we're in a big, strong financial position in this community, and hopefully the citizens are proud of that.
Well, if I could interrupt, I would point out that you know, we're at what I think Jan said, 3.7% of a 10% capacity, and we have made extraordinarily great reinvestments in our community, which has a good return on investment, thanks to the guidance and direction of the commission. And we still have the lowest property tax rate in the region.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a team effort, and there's a lot to be proud of there in the financial picture. So kudos from the commission through all the staff and the department heads that watch those budgets. It's a great job. A lot to be proud of.
Yes, there is. And I do really appreciate all the attention that all of you have given to making that happen. To Janet and all her team of accountants. They did an excellent job in getting records to us, even this year with us not being there in person. They saw that we got everything we needed. They sent stuff through a secure portal. We were able to go on site and test areas we had to go on site for, but they've done an excellent job. I appreciate your all's attention as commissioners. I appreciate Pete's attention. If we needed anything from him or had questions, he's always been available. And as I said, he and Janet reviewed all this with us back in December, with the exception of the OPEB we were all waiting on.
And Pete, to your comment, which I appreciate a lot, sometimes it's smart, it's a good strategy, particularly when the interest rates are so low. and we have the capacity to do it, that if we have projects, which are these kind that you're talking about, that we invest in, that are really going to give us a great return on that investment for growth, it's smart to go ahead and do it. And I think we'll probably have some discussions in that order, as we're looking at next year's budget.
I'd be derelict if I didn't say something here. There are other parameters we look at. So the city manager and Mr. Wilson and I are always looking at those other parameters other than just the capacity. There's also a parameter that is your ability to pay and how much of your general fund do you really want to tie up with debt service payments. And we try to keep that at the policy level of 10%. So we try to balance that, and Pete and management's done a great job of balancing those other parameters with the capacity.
So what you're saying is there's more to determining what car you can afford than letting the salesman tell you.
Absolutely.
All right. All right. Are there other questions for Karen while she's with us? If there are not, we thank you very much, and congratulations on your retirement in the COVID isolation. I don't think I knew that.
Okay, as I'm still there, I'm just working much less, and so anyway.
Well, best wishes. Mr. Peterson, what's next on our agenda?
Your next order of business is consideration of a beer license application for JNC 410 Limited Liability Corporation, doing business as Earth Fair, located at 1735 West State of Franklin Road. This is an application for a Class 2 off-premise beer license. The appropriate reviews have been performed, finding no disqualifying factors, and a recommendation is for your approval.
Do we have the petitioner with us? Not that we require it, but I just don't want to look past them if we do. It doesn't look like we do. So
not I'm aware of, Mayor, we do have an unidentified person in our waiting room, but I have no way of contacting them to know what it is that they're waiting for.
All right. Well, I would think we would know. So are there questions of staff about the application? And if not, is there a motion to take action on it?
Mayor, make a motion for approval, and at the same time say we are so glad to have Earth Fair back with us in Johnson City.
Amen. So we have a motion for approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Hunter. If there's not objection, Ms. Jennings, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
And Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Thank you. Your next order of business is consideration of the consent agenda.
All right. I guess we'll go alphabetically. Commissioner Brock, do you have anything you would like to pull?
I do not.
All right. Commissioner Hunter?
No.
Thank you. Commissioner Murphy?
No, sir.
All right. We did talk through a number of these items on our agenda review earlier in the week. Is there a motion for action on the consent agenda?
Make the motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve and a second. If there's not an objection, Ms. Jennings, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Brock?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter? Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Thank you. Your next order of business is consideration of ordinance number 4766-21. An ordinance to amend the fiscal year 2021 budget, which was passed by ordinance number 4745-20. Ready for your consideration on first reading and public hearing. For especially the benefit of Commissioner Murphy, the budget ordinances are prescribed by charter to have a public hearing on the first reading, which is somewhat unusual, and in that we usually have public hearing on all the other ordinances at second reading. So that's the reason for the requirement for the first reading and public hearing. Mr. Thompson, if you'd like to explain the budget amendment, please, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Commissioners, good evening. As mentioned during your agenda review session,
Dustin, should you have your camera on so people will know who this disembodied voice is?
JT, you'll have to turn my camera on. It says the host has stopped it.
There you go.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you. As we mentioned during your agenda review session, several of the items that are included in this amendment, you have already approved with the understanding that a formal budget amendment would be coming to you. Items that are included in this amendment, they're the lump sum payment and the pay plan adjustment for the employees, the CCLC grant for Langston. There's additional funding for street resurfacing. There's a project at MPCC regarding the pool chemical room ventilation. There's an additional paratransit van in mass transit. And then there's the funding for the construction at the 3 elementary schools, which we, due to sales tax concerns when we originally passed the budget, we didn't include it, but now want to include it in there for Lake Ridge, Southside, and Woodland. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Commissioners, do you have questions for Dustin on the budget amendment? If not, we can open the public hearing, and JT will need to check in with anybody we don't recognize pending to see if they're here for the public hearing on this ordinance.
I will check in with them right now and bring a slide up on the screen for you.
All right, thank you.
Sorry for the delay there.
What we're getting ready to do is public hearing on ordinance number 4766-21. This is a first reading of an ordinance to amend the fiscal year 2021 budget.
Mayor, I don't see a call-in number on this slide.
I do not either.
Yeah, we normally have a slide up there that tells them how to call in.
At the moment, I'm trying to let this one person in, and we'll put that up after they're gone, if that's okay.
All right, thank you.
Their connection is trying to join. I'm sorry for the delay. I'm just sitting here watching their connection trying to join us. I'll go ahead and swap this slide in the meantime.
It may not be in a Bright Ridge zone.
I don't think most people realize you have to have a pilot to drive the Zoom plane. Somebody there's in the background working their hearts out to make sure everything works. So thank you officially, JT, and to Wendy, who's away this week.
And what we may do, if it's agreeable, we could leave public hearing open into the second reading. Would that be an option, Ms. Jennings or Mr. Peterson?
It certainly is, yes, sir.
All right. So if there, perhaps I'll give JT another moment, but
That connection completely failed, Mayor.
okay.
So I have gone ahead and removed them. If they want to come back, they'll have to call again.
Okay. So for now, we're going to leave public hearing open so that we can revisit it on second reading. So citizens who may wish to speak on this issue can make contact with the city over the next couple of weeks, and we can ensure that input is heard. Is there commission action on this item on first reading with public hearing remaining open?
I will move to approve the budget amendment as submitted.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. If there's not objection, Ms. Jennings, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Mr. Peterson?
Next order of business is consideration of ordinance number 4767-21. Excuse me. An ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, being part of the appendix to ordinance number 1519, entitled an ordinance to adopt a code of laws and ordinances for the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, and to repeal all laws and ordinances in conflict therewith and amendatory thereof by changing from B3 supporting central business zoning to I1 light industrial zoning, certain properties bound by West Watauga, West Market, and West King Streets, ready for your consideration on second reading after public hearing. Mayor?
Good evening, everyone. If you will allow me, I'm going to share my screen. And okay, just a brief overview, and then we will touch base on some questions that were raised from first reading. Just so you know where we are, this is West Market Street and Watauga, and the property to be rezoned is right in this blue area. What the request really is doing is taking this loading and delivery area and moving it to the side. One of the things that was brought up in the first reading was we wanted to present like the amended plan, which was to take this parking and turn it vertically, you'll notice. And then how the deliveries would come was another issue raised. So the deliveries will come down King Street and turn in, and Public Works, or engineering, I should say, created some turning templates of how that might look. So if a truck traveling down King Street comes in and backs in, it would look like that. And then to leave, it looks like this. So hopefully that helps with some questions, and I can run through that a couple of times. This was something that staff recommends approval for, as well as the Planning Commission. And there are some policies in front of you of where this is compliant with the bridge plan and the city's strategic plan. The decisions before you are on this slide as far as to approve or deny or defer action. And I believe the applicant is on the call as well if you have some questions for the applicant. But do you have any questions of staff?
Ms. Hodges, could I ask the pattern of the traffic as you proposed it, is that not the same pattern that exists today?
It is.
Okay, so there's not going to be any changes in more trucks or anything like that.
The change is that they stop coming here and they just come around.
Yeah.
And I believe Mr. Commissioner Murphy's complete concern would be any additional traffic, especially with this sidewalk here and this crossing here. And at least the crossing wouldn't change. I think that they're from and Public Works might want to step in if they have some additional questions about the turning templates. There may need to be some finessing on an engineering level. We're just really at a rezoning level, so we're still kind of high up as far as the process. So, but as we get into site plan review or anything like that, we would our staff will work to ensure that safety is, our first priority.
Are there questions for staff before we turn it over to Mr. Parker to make any comments he might wish to make? If not, can we let Mr. Parker in? I think I see him here somewhere.
I'll get to his slides.
Mr. Parker's with us. I'm waiting for him to unmute himself.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name's Bob Parker, and I'm president of Johnson City Bedding Company. Thanks for the opportunity to come and speak about our request for rezoning. And I do want to thank a lot of folks that worked with us in this process for the last number of months. Mr. Mitchell, Ms. Hodges, Mr. Ryder, Mr. Penzola, and a whole bunch of other folks, including Mr. Peterson. Thank you all so much. We really appreciate that. I know you've got a lot of information in your packet, and so I don't want to take a long time to talk about our company and what we do. We're a small mattress manufacturing company, been in Johnson City since 1934, relocated from our West Walnut Street location in 1981 to our current location at 250 West Market Street. We're a vertically integrated manufacturer of mattresses and foundations, and we market our products through retail furniture and bedding dealers in 11 states. We've had the good fortune to grow steadily over the past few years, and we currently employ 60 folks. We've been working for several months with Johnson City Department of Development Services to rezone several parcels of property that would enable us to add additional loading capacity by adding 2 to 3 dock doors at the western end of our building. And this would eliminate a pretty big bottleneck that we have in our process right now, and helps us load our mattresses and foundations directly from our finished goods conveyor system onto the trucks. So it improves our loading efficiencies and improves our employee safety. And then a real nice bonus is that our trailers won't be blocking portions of King Street during the loading process. We'll be entirely off the street in the new lot if that is approved. We also want to add 5 additional visitor parking spaces on the front side of the building on West Market. And as you saw in the revised plan, we basically working with Preston's suggestion is to turn those, so to speak, so that we won't be backing out onto West Market Street. And that was an easy fix. And thank you, Preston, for working through that with us. We're not proposing to build any structures on the property. And there's a slide, I'm not sure, there it is. There's our west side of our building. And I'm not sure if you can see my cursor or not, but we would propose to put the loading doors into the side of the building. Yes, ma'am, that is correct. And back our trailers into that area. At the March 4th meeting, Commissioner Murphy brought up an excellent question. I think it's a fair question about our transportation patterns and safety issues. And so I've just put a brief narrative. I think Whitney said this was not going to change anything other than where our tractors and trailers end up. And that is we've got 2 storage lots for the trailers, and we shuttle those in a westerly direction on King Street. And then with the new lot, if that is approved, we'll turn left into that new lot and then back into the new doors for our loading process, and then reverse the process when it's time, when the trailer is loaded, reverse the process and take those trailers back to the storage lot. So again, that's an excellent question. I don't believe we're going to have any increased safety issues. We've had a good safety record since we've been here in '81, and we won't be crossing over any pedestrian areas, and certainly won't be extending out onto Watauga. So that's my comments, and I'm certainly open to any questions. Be glad to address any questions that you might have.
Commission, are there questions for Mr. Parker?
Mayor, I would just say, I appreciate the the detail in answering Commissioner Murphy's question, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Commissioner Murphy or Brock?
Appreciate you all working on that. Mr. Parker, thank you for coming to visit to give further explanation.
Certainly.
Is greatly welcomed. Appreciate your business being here. I am a strong advocate of small business, and thank you for providing jobs to our community. Also, while we're talking, and I could call you outside the meeting, but I want to encourage you to partner with the neighbors at Carver, right across the street. I think you guys could do something great in our community.
I think that's an excellent suggestion. We have a kind of an informal partnership. They use some of our parking at night. This was pre-COVID, of course, but when there's sizable meetings where they use some of our parking at the corner of Watauga and King, and we've had a kind of an informal relationship for a lot of years in doing that. But you're right, there's some other things we could be doing. I appreciate you mentioning that.
Yeah, I'd just like to kind of make a final comment that this is another one of those projects that really support our strategic plan, because we've addressed not just business growth in Johnson City, but existing business growth. And this is a good partnership between the city and Mr. Parker in Johnson City Bedding to kind of help them grow as an existing business. So we're making some good inroads there. So thanks again. I've been able to hear it several times being on the Planning Commission, and appreciate how orderly and organized that you've been in answering all the questions that have been presented to you, and to Ms. Hodges as well. Thank you very much. Y'all done a great job.
Thank you. Is the commission ready to take action on this item on second? Well, no, we need to do a public hearing, don't we? Yes, we need to open up for a public hearing, and we're going to be hearing on two different items that are related to this same item. So I don't know, JT would be best served. We're putting the public hearing up, and perhaps we leave that up. Well, no, there's just no smooth way to do this in a Zoom meeting, is there? Let's give a moment for anyone who may wish to call in.
Mayor, if you'll bear in mind that we have a solid 20 to 25 second delay before our stream here reaches YouTube, so we'll probably need to have an uncomfortably long session with the slide available.
All right.
At this point, the slide has been live on YouTube for about 5 seconds.
So we are looking at Ordinance 4767-21. This is an ordinance to rezone a portion of 325 West Watauga Avenue, part of the Johnson City Bedding Facility. And we are having a public hearing on that, and then a later alleyway abandonment associated with the same general area. So if the public wishes to participate in our public hearing, calling in using the phone and numbers, ID numbers on the screen would be how to do that.
I think we're safe to proceed.
All right. I will leave, perhaps, shall we leave the public? What's the commission's pleasure? Leaving the public hearing open, or go ahead and close public hearing and move on second reading?
Let's close it.
I think we handled it the way we do it normally.
Okay, we'll close public hearing and look to the commission now to take action.
I move that we approve the rezoning of 325 West Watauga Avenue and 250 West Market Street from B3 to I1.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. There's not objection. Ms. Jennings, would you read the roll?
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Your next order of business is consideration of ordinance number 4768-21. An ordinance to abandon an alley between 325 West Watauga Avenue and 250 West Market Street, extending south from West King Street upon the terms and conditions contained herein, and repealing all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, is ready for your consideration on second reading and public hearing. If you will recall, there is an alleyway, platted alleyway that runs partially through that vacant property. And Ms. Hodges, if you'd like to explain. Thank you, ma'am.
And yeah, I'll share my screen. I've got a map as well that shows this a little bit better. Current slide. Okay. What we are talking about is this 6 to 10 feet. I think there's some discrepancy of how wide this is, but it shows up in both here and then also your faces are on where and hopefully you can see this. Of where this alleyway is located. We did, extend that invitation for comment on this alleyway, and that was in your packet. I don't believe we've gotten, actually, I know we haven't gotten anybody else who has either has a comment or they've just not responded, which is typical if they don't have an issue. You do notice that there is an easement adjacent to it, but the abandonment of this alley would not change that easement. And I guess it's again an approval, and the commission has approved it. The planning commission has approved it. Sorry. So I'll stop share.
Are there any other questions for staff before we open the public hearing on this item? If there are not, we'll move to the public hearing screen. And again, this is an alleyway abandonment. JT, can you give us an indication when it's been up on YouTube for a sufficient amount of time?
Certainly. It just now went live on YouTube.
All right, we are inviting public comment for a public hearing on Ordinance 4768-21. This is an ordinance to abandon a public alleyway between 325 West Watauga and 250 West Market Street and West King Street. If we don't have anyone wishing to comment, we can close the public hearing and move to the commission for action. Is there a motion from the commission?
Move approval.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Jennings, if we don't have objection, will you read the roll?
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Mayor, may I make a brief closing comment?
Yes, sir, Mr. Parker.
Thank you, Commission, on behalf of the Parker family and the valued employees at Johnson City Bedding. This is going to be a great thing for us, and I really appreciate your consideration. And then I'd also, for Mr. Peterson, I've had the pleasure to know Pete for many, many years, and I've been a citizen of Johnson City since 1956. I've seen some amazing things happen in our town, and Pete, you've been a great part of that for this past 31 years. Thank you for your service to the city and to the region. Godspeed to you.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
right, your next order of business is consideration of ordinance number 4763-21. An ordinance to abandon a public right-of-way known as Burbank Drive on the terms and conditions contained herein and repealing all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, ready for your consideration on third and final reading. Mr. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Mr. Ryder is there. He might be having a technical issue, but this is third reading.
I'm here if you can. It's not letting me share the video, and now I'm seeing the message that I can.
There we go.
Thank you. Now I'll attempt to share my screen. Good evening, Mayor Wise, commissioners. We received a request to abandon from Harry Stollard, owner of Transportation Systems Incorporated, to abandon the public right-of-way known as Burbank Drive. I will be happy to go through this presentation if you'd like me to. This is third reading. Planning Commission recommended approval of this. It's passed on first and second reading. Staff has no further information to share, but I will be happy to go through the presentation if you'd like.
I am good with this. In fact, would say that this is another one of those projects that really assists an existing business that can make full use of their property, and will give them some opportunity for growth as well.
Are there others on the commission that have questions for staff before we look for an action? Or is there a motion?
I will continue my thoughts with a motion for approval on third reading, ordinance 4763-21.
Thank you. Is there a second?
A second.
We have a motion and a second. If there's no objection, Ms. Jennings, would you read the roll?
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Hutter,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Mayor Wise.
Yes.
The next order of business is consideration of ordinance number 4765-21. An ordinance to revise, update, and add new sections to the code of the city of Johnson City regarding privilege tax by amending Title 8, Chapter 4 of the Code of the City of Johnson City, Tennessee, and repealing all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, is ready for your consideration on third and final reading. Ms. Sandos?
Yes, this is the pandemic privilege tax that would reduce the taxes for establishments that have essentially liquor by the drink licenses. Are there any questions with regard to this matter on third reading?
Are there any changes since the first two readings?
No, Mayor, they're not.
Okay. Commission, do you have any questions for staff or a motion for action?
I really appreciate the work that's been done on this. It's kind of evolved over the last couple of months, and I think it's at a good place that I feel very comfortable in voting for it. Anybody else wants to make the motion?
I'll make that.
Gonna hog
We have
the
a
motion.
motion from Commissioner Hunter, and now we need a second.
I won't be selfish. I'll do the second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. If there's not objection, Ms. Jennings, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Hutter,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
and Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Commissioners, this takes you to the portion of our agenda where we have public input.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Peterson. JT, do we have anybody wishing to make public input?
Yes, sir, we do. We have Danielle Goodrich, who I will admit at this time after sharing the screen.
Okay. So we'll put our public input guidelines up. Thank you.
Hi there, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can. Go ahead if you'll give your name and address and your remarks, please.
Yes, this is Danielle Goodrich from Johnson City Freedom and Tennessee Stands Tri-Cities, representing 1,400 of your constituents. Thank you for taking on the task of representing us. Representative Thomas Massey said, if you're waiting on permission from your chief executive to celebrate Independence Day with your family, then you clearly don't grasp the concept of independence. It's a problem we're experiencing, a fundamental lack of understanding of what is our government's job. What is their purpose as intended by our founding fathers? The intent of the Constitution was to secure the inalienable God-given rights of man, and the government's sole purpose is to protect those rights, the right to work, the right to worship God. Those are just a few. And the oversteps made for a virus that any other cause of death is more likely to kill all age groups doesn't tip in COVID's favor until 70 plus. Yet my children, who are at 0.003%, statistically 0% likelihood for death, are wearing a smile blocker all day. Why is suicide and depression through the roof for young teens? Does anyone know the signs of smiles or the findings of masks? Essentially, all we have blocked the spread of is happiness, and mental harms are much more lasting and harder to fix. Some cultures, the elders sacrifice for the children. Ours, we are asking the children to sacrifice for us. What does that say about our society? That we are cowards? Fear-driven, that we believe God isn't sovereign and government's our daddy? As Ben Franklin said, those who trade liberty for safety deserve neither. What happened in COVID was completely unconstitutional, but here's the root of the problem. Who is tasked with upholding the Constitution? Those who are elected and swear an oath to it. Do you have deep knowledge of our Constitution that ensures you will uphold your oath as it's intended? Elected across the country clearly don't, as they trample its intent and overstep their domain into inalienable rights. Do you want a government with that type of power? How has it played out in history when governments think they have power over who lives and dies, who suffers and doesn't, when they play God? Do you know what the Tennessee Constitution says about allowing governments to step into our lane and infringe upon inalienable rights they're tasked with upholding? That it's absurd and slavish for the people to allow it. That is how the Constitution defines allowing masks, closing businesses, closing houses of worship, arresting pastors, masking our children, vaccine passports. Absurd and slavish. Do you know how many times the Constitution is mentioned in your party platform? The disparity is telling. 80 in one, 4 in the other. But few are doing their job upholding it, and I think it's because they've never learned it. Representative Halsey took a 40-hour course and it shows. We would like to invite you to take a 3-hour class. Some wish this binding document of freedom were gone altogether. It would make a takeover a lot easier. You don't have to take it away if you take away the understanding of its intent and put people in who won't uphold it. As you all are tasked with upholding it, as you swore an oath to it, we ask that you please come take a class. A few hours out of your day at the bequest of your constituents is not a lot to ask. Our Tennessee Constitution is claimed to be the least imperfect, and we want to make sure it's upheld that way. Please come take this course, so never again will you allow yourself or your constituents to be unconstitutional, slavish, and absurd. Thank you. I'll be sending out a flyer soon.
All right, thank you. Are there others waiting to offer public input?
No, sir, there are not.
All right. Mr. Peterson, what is next on our agenda?
Next item on your agenda is the manager's report, and I would like to share with you, Mayor Wise and I made a trip to Nashville Tuesday afternoon and Wednesday for a meeting with the governor to again make a request for some state funding to help us renovate the Ash Street Courthouse in conjunction with Washington County. In our application package and the materials that we shared with the governor and his staff were letters of support from Washington County, from the Historic Alliance, from East Tennessee State University. So we've tried to get everyone with an interest in the Ash Street Courthouse project involved in this process. And as you all are aware, the Walnut Street project is now out to bid. And on the west end, you have as the anchor East Tennessee State University. The middle anchor is the mill, and Scott Andrew and some of his other investors have recently announced the acquisition of multiple properties there in the immediate vicinity of the mill that they're going to develop into another potentially museum and hotel and dining and spirits. So we have a center anchor there. And what we're hoping to do with courthouse is to have an eastern end anchor to where we have a very strong unified conduit between the university and downtown. And what we've envisioned for the courthouse would be a center of economic development, primarily aimed at entrepreneurship and the development of new businesses and helping new and small businesses become acquainted with investors, to help folks with an interest in starting their own business, having resources there in one central location. Mr. Andrew and East Tennessee State are making commitments to help us with that process at that location. And this goes back and addresses, you know, some of the principles of our strategic plan, in that we want to attract new business and new citizens to Johnson City. We want to work hard to retain East Tennessee State University graduates in the area. It'll also be an opportunity for folks that haven't yet obtained their undergraduate degree, an opportunity to become educated and informed about how to start a business and what all is really involved in entrepreneurship. We also met with several of the Northeast Tennessee delegation while we were down there, and I felt like we were received very warmly. I feel very positively about our request potentially being included in this year's state budget to receive funding for that project. So it's getting ready to get really exciting on Walnut Street with the streetscape reconstruction and the utility replacement and dealing with stormwater. And hopefully we will have some money here after the state budget's approved to begin the renovations and the preservation of the Ash Street Courthouse. The intent's not to go in there and make something different. The intent is to preserve what we have and repurpose it for a different reason than what it has been used for in the most recent time. Excuse me. Additionally, we've been working on budgets as a staff. We met today for 2 or 3 hours looking at personnel requests and operating requests. As you know, sales tax is a significant piece of our revenue stream, and those reports run a couple of months behind. So we should see the January numbers in another week or so, Janet. I think that's right.
Correct.
So we're trying to get budget information together. A lot of time spent on that. Of course, at our workshop on Monday, or excuse me, this past Tuesday, the decision was made that you all would like to go back to live meetings effective at our next meeting, which will be April the 1st. So we've also had staff working on a reopening plan of City Hall. Right now, we are planning on going to live meetings on April the 1st. And we will fully reopen City Hall on April the 5th, which is the following Monday. You know, we're in process of opening up park facilities and other facilities that we have. All of that will be done with the CDC recommended safety protocols in place. We will be doing temperature checks before entry. We will require the wearing of masks while in the buildings. There will be plenty of hand sanitizing stations, and we will request and require that the appropriate social distancing be maintained while in the building. So we're excited to get back open, and I'm pleased to report that we have adequate supplies and resources. It's a matter now of reassigning labor, our human resource. If you'll recall, last spring, rather than laying people off, we repurposed a number of our employees from their traditional assignment into filling other work needs that we have. So we're now in the process of transitioning those folks back to their original assignment, which the majority of them were Parks and Rec employees, so that we can get the parks and recreation centers open. So I think we've got a really good plan in place. As I said, we have sufficient resources in place and looking forward to opening things up safely. In the news, there has been quite a bit of discussion about the most recent federal funding that has been made available to state and local governments as well as to individuals. The preliminary information we have at this point is that Johnson City will be receiving $13 million. We do know that we will receive 1/2 of that allocation within 60 days of the passage of the bill by Congress. And we also know for sure that the second half of that money will not be received until 1 year after the receipt of the first half. There's still not a lot of clarity as to what qualifies as an eligible expense. So there are a number of phone calls and Zoom meetings and discussions amongst folks in finance. And I've got a call with all the regional city managers tomorrow to talk about our understanding of how that money can be used. So as we get more clarity on how it can be utilized, we will certainly be sharing that with you and looking for some policy decisions and direction on how best to invest that in our local economy to ensure that our economy stays vital and those that are in need of some help and employment have an opportunity to get things going again. That's the primary things we've been working on in the last week or so. There's a report in your packet of information that outlines all of the construction projects that are in process as to where we are on the timeline of completing those projects. And I would be glad to answer any questions you may have beyond what I have explained here this evening.
Do any commissioners have questions?
Just one follow up on the money that we're going to get through the American Recovery Act. You mentioned half of it would come within 60 days after the legislation was passed. I thought it had already passed Congress.
It has. I was trying to say
the clock started then.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Very good. Thank you.
Any other, well, I guess one other thing, there was some communication back and forth from a variety of sources about the unkept condition of certain sections of downtown, namely the breezeway. We've had increased crews down there for some time now, policing the downtown area. But since the communication earlier in the week, Phil has rearranged the cleaning schedule and we will be down there on a more frequent basis. And we have already begun running extra police details downtown. We have extra officers working extra shifts down there to help patrol the downtown area. The other thing I mentioned to you on Tuesday afternoon, Phil and his group will be prepared at our second April meeting, which will be the 15th, to share with you some preliminary work we've done in terms of enhancing monitoring of downtown activities, as well as enhancing the pedestrian level lighting downtown to get some additional illumination. So hopefully this is something that we can discuss, and if we find benefit in it, we can certainly include those activities in the upcoming fiscal year budget for implementation, beginning with the new fiscal year.
Are there other questions?
I have a couple of other items. One, and Mr. Peterson, thank Bob Wilson for getting all the scheduling done for our budget reviews. I haven't looked at each one of those to see exactly who we will be reviewing the budget with on each date. But my question is about our partners, NetRep, the Chamber, JCDA. Will they be invited over to go through? I think each one of them, took our request for them to look at their budgets and how they're going to support our strategic plan and come back with their budget request. Will we be inviting them over in person so we can hear those and have that discussion?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Good. And this is just a point of kind of interest. A couple of years ago, several of us were working with Fred Alsop from the Carter Museum at ETSU, and he contacted me again couple of weeks ago, just to kind of bring up the issue of the Carter Museum, the Railroad Museum, and its need to relocate. Then they need to move off the campus of ETSU. And obviously that is, one of those pieces of our history, the railroad. So Charlie sat in that meeting and was going to be following up on several things. And I think the main thing he's looking for is kind of some connectivity in the community who may have some interest in helping facilitate getting this move to the right location, and strategically how it would play out as one of those destination places for the city. Brenda Whitson was there as well. Keisha sat in on it also. So I just want to throw that out there. It's just one of those things that it's sooner rather than later, it's going to have to begin its move. And from everything I've ever seen and understand, it is a significant piece of history for this community, and quite fascinating. If y'all have been to it, they have more in storage than they have displayed. So they're in about 5,000 square feet now at the university, and they're looking for somewhere around 10 to 12,000 square feet of space that would be in a location that would be, good for the city. So just want to brief everybody on that.
Are there others? Commissioner Hunter?
Yeah. First, I just want to say how excited I am that we're about to enter budget season. It's my favorite time of year. But
even over Christmas.
Well, close second, I guess. Okay. But the library board met earlier this week, and they are planning to reopen next month, and more details will be coming out later. And then some of us had the opportunity to do the push-in ceremony in Gray at the fire station, and so that was a real treat, and enjoyed doing that. TIF advisory met earlier this morning, and we approved a facade grant and had a preliminary presentation, I guess, from Scott Andrews on several of his projects on West Walnut Street that they'll be rolling out, that Pete Peterson mentioned earlier. But that's all I got.
Commissioner Murphy?
This has been a wonderful meeting. I want to thank the city for providing more police presence downtown. Me personally, working downtown, I feel more safe. And also I feel better about the new playground by the library, having more police presence and children playing. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Commissioner Murphy. Is there anything else before we adjourn?
Mayor, may I be so bold as to make a comment?
Yes, sir.
First of all, thank you very much for your appreciation of my services tonight. This is a pleasure that I enjoy, but would not inflict upon my worst enemy. It is very complicated, very convoluted, and fraught with the possibility for disaster at every turn. So for that, I would like to extend my utmost gratitude to Wendy Graham, who has done this for the vast majority of meetings that we've held throughout this period. And I cannot thank her enough for that. And am very grateful that at the end of this period, I have discovered how much work she has done to make all of this happen in the meantime. So I'll leave you with that.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And we will also acknowledge Wendy's effort at keeping all those plates spinning while we were doing this meeting on Zoom. So if there's nothing further, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you.